a learning curve?
Uh, we'll talk about it in the after show. By the
Good.
way,
The
welcome
after show.
everybody. It's Tuesday, often called here Social Tuesday. There is actually an after show after every one of these shows. Dr. V keeps insisting we need to record the after
We
show
do.
because it covers a whole bunch of stuff that he thinks people would find very useful, but we don't actually cover during the main program.
Yeah. But
Maybe one of these days we'll start recording the after shows.
I think I need
Today's
a new
Social
version of
Tuesday, and
ScreenFlow. That'll do it.
unless you guys have someone in mind that we would look at, I was thinking about something a little bit different.
okay.
Uh-oh.
What do you want to do?
So I'm totally okay. Like my thing's not going away. We can do it any Tuesday in the future. But
Well, I have a profile selected, but you have me way too intrigued. We're definitely doing your thing because the profile will wait till next week.
yeah, fair enough.
Okay.
So I want to talk about content marketing for a moment,
Okay.
and then I want to talk about the special thing.
Okay.
So I have been. This is an example where, like, once in a while, something is like literally like right in front of your nose, so you can't see it, right? And I had always been, as far as a marketing approach went, I've always thought that content marketing would always take a back seat to actual sales prospecting if you wanted to grow your small business, because by definition, it's marketing by creating content and hoping people will be attracted to it and read it, right? It's very much a pick me, choose me kind of approach.
Mm-hmm.
Now, over time, and this is the theory of content marketing, over time, you build up a cumulative asset where more and more people. So it's very much like a snowball that starts very tiny and goes down a very long hill.
Absolutely.
Right. By the time it's at the bottom of the hill, it's gigantic, it's massive. Don't get in front of it or try to fight against it, kind of thing.
People stuck
But
in
for
it.
the first very, very, very long time, you're slogging away, and it can take a very long time before it turns into real money. Whereas what I always advise most businesses is content marketing is great, and if you can do it, absolutely do it. But it doesn't outweigh contacting a potential prospect today.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. So at no point, and this is how, like, in front of your nose, right? We started the video series, John and I. We started this video series going, I think, at one point like 4 or 5 times a day, and now we just do the core 3 in the middle of the week. We started it for several reasons. It was we had figured out multiple small experiments we wanted to do, and this was the venue that would help us do them.
Yes.
It's sort of like, thread multiple needles in one shot, which is always a big thing for me, right? I like an elegant solution where one thing does multiple things. And then it never occurred to me straight up that we're actually, if we thought about it and step back a little bit, this was a content marketing endeavor that I never considered. In fact, I never considered, Heather, you actually brought this up. Like I said, I never bother to post anything on LinkedIn or Facebook. Like I don't do it at all. And you're the one that say, you're posting videos 3 days a week, every week of the year. How is that not posting on social media? And you're right. And I was completely wrong.
Yeah.
And only now, 50, 60 videos in, has that body of work actually become a cumulative asset.
Yeah.
To the point where I'm getting contacted by people who watch it on YouTube like weeks or months after we record these.
Sure.
Right. Or happen to come across it in their feed on LinkedIn or Facebook today, or whatever, to catch it on Twitter, that are contacting me to talk about working for them. So it just goes to show you can be working on something and literally not understand what you're doing. Like I apparently have been doing all this time, being dismissive of content marketing while at the same time conducting content marketing.
So content marketing, this is the way I usually pitch it to my solopreneurs. Content marketing, social media, long-term strategy, and it will build that cumulative asset and over time can provide that kind of growth. But it's a long-term strategy.
Yeah.
And that snowball does take a while to get rolling. If you need to fill the bottom of the funnel now, that's all outreach, all personal contacts. And I would say, as you're doing your content marketing, the outreach that you do will amplify how quickly that grows. Because if I go and I reach out to more connections, Then when I
Right.
do a LinkedIn Live and invite people, I can invite those connections and they might consume more of my content. And then they might actually follow me more closely and so on, right? Like, so that
Yeah.
tends to snowball as well. So I never one without the other, because if you focus only on personal contacts, unless you have an unending supply, then those will run out and then you have no long-term strategy, and you're starting a long-term strategy when your
Right.
income is at zero, which is nightmare. But if you're just doing content marketing, I hope you have another job, because that's not going to amp up.
Right.
And oftentimes the outreach thing is the scary thing. And unless you're hungry, you're not going to do it. You're going to
Yeah.
stay safe and just post and not ask and get rejected, or ask and feel uncomfortable. So I think they function best together.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. But now apparently,
Heather's always right.
I think the first one came in at around 52, 53 videos, like the first inbound request for a prospect. And so I joked to like John or Dr. V at the time, said, so apparently 1 out of every 53 videos, I'll get a prospect. But then the next one came in at around 57. So now it's like 1 out of every 27, 28 videos. And then the third one came in last week. So now it's 1 out of every 20 videos. And the more that come in, the ratio continues to go down and down and down and down.
Dean Way, ratio man.
I do
Well,
love
if
my
you go to a
maths, man.
social site and you see 3 posts, what do you think? Out of business, not serious, not committed. And when you
Wouldn't
go and you
respond
see
to
a
me even if
collection,
I contacted them. Yeah.
yeah. And then the great thing about having that collection is people can scan through and find something they actually give a crap about. Nobody cares about all your videos. They care about a subsection, right? So they're really into the copywriting, or they care. That's because you're in them, Dr.
It's you.
It's not that you care about Dean, it's that you care about Dr. B.
Yeah.
That's how we operate as humans.
That's
But,
right.
but then you get that selection, right? And they can find the thing they're most interested in, and then it rings a bell with them, and then they are excited to contact you. So having that library is more powerful. It's not the one video, it's the collection.
So here's my special thought experiment that I wanted to try out today. Imagine, and this is purely hypothetical, imagine that you know someone who has, or is just about to have any day now, 6,000 first level connections on LinkedIn. But other than, and again, completely hypothetical, not a real person, happens to post videos to LinkedIn every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday with 1 or more guests. Hypothetical.
Hypothetically.
Really hypothetical.
Exactly.
I'm just thinking.
But other than those videos, and does outreach on LinkedIn, or has just started to do outreach on LinkedIn, and does outreach through cold email, which she is really great at. See how I'm doing it.
You have a pronoun.
But Twitter, Facebook, any other social media you can think of, other than in some of them, those videos happen to be multi-streamed, literally no activity, never posts anything. So if you ever happen to meet someone in that situation, completely hypothetical, what advice would you guys give to that person about what they should start doing or think about now? Because a lot of business owners, they're really dominant. I say dominant, like this hypothetical person is not dominant on any platform, but nearly all of their sort of collateral connections, what activity they do perform, is really heavily weighted on just one tool, one platform, with virtually nothing anywhere else.
What's the business goal?
The business goal is new clients.
What kind of new clients?
Big,
small?
The typical engagement would be somewhere between like $3,000 and $10,000.
And a large company or solopreneur, or what kind of customer?
Small company. Oh, the customers, it's very much a mix. Some of them are it tends to be very small companies and very large companies, like brands you've heard of.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, double down on what's working, experiment on new things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't think you need to be on every platform. Depends on the volume you're doing.
No, I don't.
Depends on the volume you're doing.
But
and
if someone was going to double up, besides like focusing on one, it never. Here's the thing, right? This hypothetical person likes to have a plan B, because we all know that nothing we put on any social media platform belongs to us. You could end up in LinkedIn jail and have no recourse.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden you don't have like a backup. So it's not a bad idea to have a less important less invested in, but still active and viable second channel, so to speak.
Well, that's your experimentation. You don't have any data to use to pick a second channel right now. I mean,
Nope.
you do, right? Or
Not
the
really.
person does because they're streaming to multiple channels. Look at that, and then it looks like, look at the business goals too, and look at where those prospective clients live. Do they
Right.
live? Because YouTube's the second largest search engine. Ads are still relatively cheap. You could start a campaign there. But if you've got all like 20-year-old, whatever, watching your stuff, that's not your target audience. They're not
No,
going to
not at
hire
all.
you. So you don't want to dive in there. You might look at Twitter functions as a pretty good companion to LinkedIn. You might look at playing there, etc. Right? So use the data that you do have to run thoughtful experiments while you double down on what works. You 80/20 it. 80% of your time doubling down on what works, 20% of the time fishing with that goal of having that secondary stream. That would be
Right.
my thought. I don't know what John and Dr. B think, but that's where I'd go. But as a miser with my time.
I would have thought that, like, if you were already big on Facebook, you'd have more options to pick up adjacent similar audiences, but that the LinkedIn audience might not have like a near adjacent. Right. If I'm already, or this hypothetical person was already like well into Facebook, then Pinterest might be or Snap, or, Instagram might be, a good second option. I'm wondering if
If
LinkedIn is sort of too far away from the others.
If this person is good at outreach, I would consider a Facebook because of Facebook groups.
Yeah.
Because you could try to find a Facebook group and you're good at outreach, right? If the person's good at outreach, then they'll post there, they'll do follow-ups when they have promote yourself Wednesdays or whatever. You'll do your, what I
Right.
mean? You'll do that and you can reach out with a friend request and so on and so forth, which is a nice model to be able to use in LinkedIn, which you can't really do in I feel like it's a little more web 3-ish as opposed to web 2-ish, which is just the passive, here's my content,
Right.
I hope you like it.
I like the ability to reach out with Facebook Messenger, because even
Yeah.
if you don't have a bot, I mean, it can become very personal to the point where, hey, this is getting a little cumbersome. Why don't you just send me your phone and we'll just text? Because often I'll miss out on things on Facebook Messenger, but I like the sort of the LinkedIn audience and my Facebook bunch. It's interesting when you find that they intersect. I think that becomes very valuable, particularly because in Business Manager and Facebook, you can link your Instagram and your Facebook together. And I find a lot of reach from Instagram nowadays. One of our friends is an advocate of the axis. I was going to say axis of evil, the axis of outreach, which is using a combination of Instagram and YouTube, and driving people from Instagram to YouTube. But yeah, you just sort of have to pick your platform and go with it. I think Heather is right about, finding the one that's working, double down on that, and then continue.
Right.
Because often people, I mean, ultimately you do want omnipresence, but you're going to pay a lot of money and spend a lot of time and have staff and
Right.
others
Yeah.
to create that omnipresence.
Yeah, the one thing I was going to say is, with the tools we have today, it makes it a lot easier to be a little more omnipresent, because we can distribute a lot easier, and it also makes it easy to save your content someplace so that it lives forever on Google Drive or wherever it might be.
Right.
So there's a lot of
So you're talking about tools that allow you to like schedule posts and post to multiple venues at the same day and all that kind of stuff.
Double down on things by and actually be able to.
Is Hootsuite still like the big player in that field, or is there something else besides Hootsuite?
Later, there's a bunch of them.
Later,
there's a bunch of them. Social B is what Neil uses. He talks about that a lot. I use that.
I've been playing in Missing Letter.
Yeah, Missing Letter is another good one.
And Buffer. I'm kind of picking between the two right now.
Sure.
Missing Letter.
And there's great tools too that let you go from, you can use tools like repurposed.io, IFTTT to post from your blog and then out to social media sites.
Oh, you guys need to start putting these in the chat so I can put them in the actual chat.
Oh boy. Well, some of us have affiliate links to a few of these.
I know. I was like, I could do that.
Someone might make 5 cents or 6 cents if you click on a link there. There's the disclaimer. Post whatever you want.
We'll get coffee money most of the time.
I'll post all of them.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we always say as long as you have no social media, it makes it look like your house is not lived in, like you're out of business. You're completely out of business until you start to do something.
Right, you're antisocial and not friendly to people.
Well, that too. And then there are clever ways now to be able to post and syndicate a lot easier. So, but yeah, Missing Letter, Social B was another one we mentioned.
I'm playing with Missing Letter. They have two interesting features. One is that they'll take, if you're a blogger, they'll take your blog and create an evergreen campaign for you. You have to do some, they use as much AI as they can. You have to do some tweaking, but it will pre-program your blog post over 6 to 12 months so that you're not just posting it once and forgetting, and which one should I promote and what should I do? And then they have a calendar and you can move it around if they overlap and so on. It makes it pretty easy. So that's really good for evergreen content. And then the other thing that I've just started experimenting with and can't advocate for yet until I experiment a little more is they have a function called curate. And if you share 5 times, share somebody else's content, then you get to put one of your articles or posts in the mix. And then if somebody else wants to curate it, if they like it and they think it's a match for their audience, then they'll share your content. So it's a way to get your content shared more broadly with connections that you don't have yet. So so that was really intriguing to me. Again, I've just started with it, so I will report back on a Pride Thursday if it ends up being amazing.
Yeah, good. John and I had been using Amy Social, but it was a little bit challenging for us insofar as they were pulling some of the content was being pulled from YouTube and posting to Facebook, and that's just like a big no-no because Facebook wants you to stay on Facebook. But it was. I think it's just a refinement. It's a relatively new platform, but it's and it uses AI.
Yeah,
but it needs. I think it needs a few more tweaks. So.
Yeah, the principles behind it are good.
Yeah. But I think nonetheless.
What?
No one else has a link they want to put in. Heather's got Missing Letter in there. I just put in a link.
I love Missing Letter because there is a letter missing. So.
I do, but I'm afraid if I go looking for the ones that I want.
Yeah, that is clever. I like how they did that.
Something playing.
Yeah.
So I can add something later.
Oh, by the way, I was a guest on the virtual CMO podcast on Friday. It was the who was I talking to last week? I think it was one of you folks, where I was talking about how because everybody has Zoom gets used for stuff that was never intended to be used for. Zoom's used for podcast recording and so on. I mean, Zoom doesn't even have like good video quality. I think it's stuck at 720. Yeah, and you're lucky to get that because if there's any compression in it, but people have it and so they use it. It's like and so this was the first time I'd ever done a podcast where it was sort of treated as live, even though, and it was done in StreamYard, which is not that anyone's going to know, but StreamYard is the platform we used for a little while until we moved to Restream, one of their competitors,
or Melon.
And it was done in StreamYard. Like I'd say, okay, that's interesting. I just thought it would be live because it's done in Stream, but actually it's done just to get the recording, basically.
Yeah, because the audio, StreamYard has this wonderful feature where you can actually disconnect the audio and just use the audio files for each and every person as a separate
Yeah, it's
file.
on Apple Podcasts as just the audio.
Yeah.
And then it's on YouTube, which is the link I put in here, as the video edition of it. It's pretty clever.
You can do that here on Restream as well. You can pre-record and then upload it and say, send this out as a live thing. So
I still think, though, that posting from within a platform natively tends to get you the greatest reach.
Yeah.
That's been my experience. I mean, it may be only 10, 15% or something, but that could be worth it, depending on how many people you're trying to reach.
Yep.
Do they see you streamed, if you're streaming directly to their social channel, they see that as off-platform streaming in? You mean going live?
John's the expert on that one.
If you stream directly from the social platform itself, you're seen more favorably than using a Restream or a StreamYard, etc. Yeah. It's like they see the API in place there, and it's great if you've already established an audience. But so people that are looking to establish an audience quickly, you want to use the native platform as long as you can, and then you can start to branch out. Once you've got that audience, it'll start to develop, and you'll be okay with that.
Yeah, we see the same thing with short form video, because if you create a video, for example, in TikTok, using the editor and then put it out there, you do seem to get greater reach than if you say created a video in Vixer or InShot or something else and then uploaded it into TikTok. And I think, Instagram Reels, similar type of thing. Although, once you get to YouTube Shorts, it's just like, I only just repurpose things from TikTok into Instagram and YouTube Shorts, because YouTube Shorts it seems just volatile with a very primitive interface.
Yeah, I do think there's a way, though, as long as you don't we've used some applications that didn't use the API. They actually used the stream key. They were as good as broadcasting directly natively to the platform. So
Lots of interesting
All right.
sounds today.
So the advice for our hypothetical person is double down on the primary platform. That's your 80 out of the 20. And then the 20 would be a secondary. If the 80 is LinkedIn, then the next likeliest one would be Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, it's particularly
Where
because
are your customers?
well,
They're
yeah,
all
but
they're all businesses.
if you're going for an older customer, I mean, it's just it's Facebook is still a great way to reach people, say over the age of 45, and these may be your decision makers in larger companies.
They are.
Well, and
Or there's
Facebook or
For the
Meta,
hypothetical example we're using.
Facebook or Meta is making it really easy to do Facebook and Instagram at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do one, I would do the other. First of all, you can't do an Instagram business page without a Facebook business page anyway, and then you can post to both simultaneously. And it does mean you need to do outreach to both if you're going to take it really seriously. But again, if it's one click to be two places and to have an established presence, then I always do that. And then you can put your time and energy into it later when you have space for another experiment.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. And no one has any links to tools that they like other than Heather?
I wish you had told me, but it would take me too long to get them together.
All right.
I thought it was tools and resources Thursday. I didn't think there was time. Tuesday was tools for fools. So
yeah.
All right, so let's go look at someone's profile. We got about 10 minutes left.
I have a profile that's actually perfect for this discussion that you've had, because this is a person who has anyway, I'm going to take you through it. How do I do my screen share? Here we go. I'm going to screen share.
Share if you care.
No, hold on. I want to share the
Or if you don't.
Share even if you don't.
Window. Here
Try
we go.
linked face.
All right. So I ran into this guy named Zane Khan on LinkedIn. And so here's the interesting thing about his website. Number one, dead. No email. And every time you click on one of his links, it opens up either LinkedIn or it opens up Twitter.
Yeah.
That's the new. And I think like this one.
So it's a kind of random
like Twitter thread. No, it's a very specific Twitter thread. Okay. So a specific and extensive Twitter thread. And I didn't look at his website until earlier before I was preparing for this. And really what he has done is built a following. He got 95,000 followers on LinkedIn and it's fairly new-ish to LinkedIn. And he's got like 100,000 followers on Twitter. And you'll see this newsletter subscribe thing. He's using review subscribe function in there. But he says, this is a backup in case I ever lose my account. I'll email you a link to a new account. The dude has no real newsletter aspirations. His website is just a platform for SEO, basically, to push you to his LinkedIn and to his Twitter. And he doesn't have the fancy link here that says, lead magnet or whatever it is. So I thought it was incredibly interesting to me because he has a huge following, no website. He's not following a lot of the best practices, but has an amazing following. So I thought it'd be fun to play with that a little bit because it's a little less conventional, and looking at our discussion between content and personal outreach and all of that. I thought this was a little less of a conventional profile to look at that has this fantastic following, but for what and how he makes money, I don't have any idea.
Are there regular posts on LinkedIn? Yeah,
so he's regular. So if you look at his featured posts, this one right here on the LinkedIn, this is the tweet, right?
That's the tweet.
He turned his tweet into the post. So he started on Twitter and then moved over to LinkedIn. So he's repurposing his content, but he turned his thread into this post, and that's what is in his featured content.
What tool lets you do that?
That's just a slideshow. I mean, I'm sure I'm not sure.
You mean he just made screenshots?
It's a carousel of screenshots.
Yeah, it looks like. What was the first page that you were on? I blew it up so I could see it better.
First one was Apple.
There we go. Yeah.
There's the one. I'm Zane.
Yeah.
So the one thing I do like about this is I love playbooks. I love case studies. All of that stuff is great fodder for social media, getting people to like you because you're showing them real examples of real life stuff. And that's when I first saw this, I was like, oh, I like that part of it. So
But
that's
you'll
definitely
see, John, that these links, they don't take you to actual like
and
playbook.
that's good.
I mean, they do. He's broken his playbook down into a Twitter thread, basically.
Yeah, yeah. To me, I would be using that to get their emails in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and so I mean that seems this is the only time I've seen an email request, and
Yeah.
it is if Twitter shuts me down, I can email you and I can start a new Twitter site. Like that's how I read that, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting.
So I think this guy, this is my guess, is that, but it's hard to tell exactly what he's selling. I think he does say that he's grown 5 products to 8 million users in 3 years. So I think he's just doing this, and I think the outreach is probably where he's going. So we talked about content marketing versus outreach, right? So he's got this great credibility with his content marketing, and I think that he probably either is contacted or does outreach specifically looking for what he wants. This is my guess, but I didn't know if you all had any thoughts. And just to say, like, if your LinkedIn profile I mean, look at his banner image. This is lost screen real estate, right?
Mm.
220, 100,000 followers.
Yeah.
So, so sometimes people get like so focused on every little tiny detail. We do that here like crazy, which is not unimportant. Once you have 200,000 followers, you can make a lot of different decisions, but that it's not the be all end all.
No, simple starts make a lot of sense. Just keeping things super simple and getting the right things right until things get bigger and you can take better and bigger actions to improve.
Yeah.
There are so many Zane Khans on LinkedIn. It's amazing.
Yeah, there's
From ER physicians
loads of them.
to digital marketers.
I wouldn't have thought so, and yet there are so many.
Well, maybe that's how he got some of his followers. Have a common name.
Maybe.
But not.
Oh, hey, so I ran, this was like 8 years ago. I ran like a controlled set of experiments for LinkedIn to see the likelihood that someone who I had no connection with really would connect. And so I tracked them in a spreadsheet for every campaign. So for instance, we tried a bunch of stuff. If we have the same last name, what's the likelihood someone will connect? Or if we have the same first name, if we have X number of connections in common, if we're inside the United States versus outside the United States, and so on. I can tell you that you would think that people with the same last name might connect with you because, there's even a possibility you're related. But there was no comparison. It was something like double the amount of people would connect with me if they were also named Dean. Like if you go through my list, there's a whole cluster of Deans that all connected with me in like this particular month, years and years and years ago. For whatever reason, people feel a greater affinity if you have the same first name than if you have the same last name. Don't ask me why. I don't know.
See, that has not been my experience at all. I just the opposite. I collected Vogelmans everywhere.
Like I'm connected to someone called Victoria Way, who I've never met in Australia. And I'm pretty sure it's just because we have the same last name that she agreed.
Not Victoria's Secret, right? Just Victoria's Way.
It's not hard for me to connect or collect Paduchaks. I think there's only 3.
Yeah. I know. I think my siblings are my only Coven connection.
And I'm the only one here,
But if you targeted a whole bunch of Johns or a whole bunch of Heathers,
you'd
pick up a whole bunch for no other reason than your first name.
Well, I do know that I definitely collect Johns. I have quite a few of them in my grouping or in my email list.
Dean, did you send connection request messages with your connection request, or was it just a straight up connection request?
These were just straight plain
text
connections.
alone.
In fact, it was the really bad one that LinkedIn used to do years ago. I'd like to add you to my professional network. That's all it was. It was just the generic, by the way. Oh, by the way, I have been testing. You want to know my highest performing connection note?
Connection note? Oh, yeah. The message that you sent.
The highest performing one by all, it's been averaging 38, 39% reply rate.
Okay.
Wow.
For cold outreach. It's hi, first name, looks like we have similar connections. Let's connect, smiley face. That's it. I've tried long ones, I've tried short ones, I've tried whatever. All it says, looks like we have, it doesn't even say we have mutual connections.
That is social proof in action.
Yeah. Looks like we have similar
connections. It's why I disconnect from people who give me a sales pitch. So give me that crappy sales pitch. There have been a couple that have been connections with connections I trust, And I said yes, and I got the crappy sales pitch. And I'm like, I want to be one of those people where people are
Yep.
like, well, Heather's
Yeah.
connected with them. They must be okay. It's like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
you're out.
That's why we
Actually, I have that automated as well. So
Automated?
people will contact you like you can't have the word marketing in your profile anywhere without being bombarded by lead generation companies. It's like it's the price you pay for having marketing, right? And
Like,
so I have, but people are like, oh yeah, successful entrepreneurs like you, blah blah blah, grow your business, blah blah. So I just have I have a generic automated one, and it just says, hi, I accept all incoming requests on principle. But and if in the future it makes sense for us to talk, I'm okay with that. But it doesn't look like it makes sense right now. Have a great day.
I like that.
And they write back and say, okay, got it. Maybe I'll follow up with you sometime next year. And that's it.
That's cool.
It's been working really well for the past 6 weeks.
I like it.
Take it
All
from a
right. Well, you
copywriter.
probably should record the after show because I always hate to leave right on the dot, but I got another meeting.
All right.
See
I
y'all.
need to get
See ya. I
goodbye.
wonder how long we could keep one of these shows going.
Oh, we could do this for like
Oh,
5
come on.
hours.
You
We
think
could, we
so?
would never run out of content.
Nobody's gonna watch us for 5
I don't
hours.
know. I think
So
I think-
somebody would, well, Rich Sheffrin would be watched for like 26 hours, or another one was 38 hours, something crazy like that.
well,
you know?
LinkedIn might have a limit, but everybody else, it's
I think a Restream's limit is like 8 hours on the plan that I'm on. And I
8
can-
hours. Here we go. That's at the. You've joined us at the beginning of hour 1.
Yeah.
In fact, I've seen people do like streaming summits for days,
Yeah.
a couple days in a row.
Summits
They just
for days.
Yeah, they just change the host, and they just go on and on. They change it, put a new host in about every 4 hours.
First of all, if you do happen, I'm speaking to anyone who's watching this video either now or in the future. If you do like to know about the social media stuff and the rest of the other vast universe of stuff we talk about is not interesting to you today, you can drop right now. And thanks very much. We really appreciate your attendance.
Thanks.
And I didn't want to like people like hanging on. Or it might be some more tidbit about how people are
There might
using
be a
LinkedIn
tidbit.
with Twitter. It's like that's not going to be covered.
Might
most
be a
likely.
bit. How about a tid?
But yeah, that one, like, hi, Chris. Looks like we have
Hi.
similar connections. Let's connect. Smiley face.
Like we have
By
similar
far the
connections.
best
I like
performing
that.
one I've ever seen.
It's very mild though too, because it's not saying I noticed that we have similar connections. It looks like
Yeah.
we might, and that's very casual, and that I can see how that would work.
It's very
Yeah.
low key. Yeah.
I actually get that a lot from people, that same phraseology.
Oh, by the way, the follow up to that one is this is assuming that they like accept the connection request. By the way, if you're watching this video and you're wondering like how are these like being done, it's all done. There are tools that let you use LinkedIn and automate it. LinkedIn is not a very user friendly and management friendly platform
Right.
to manage your communications or really anything else. It's like it barely innovates ever, unfortunately. But there are tools that have been built up around that to help you, be more organized. If you're kind of person that likes to be extra productive or extra organized, there are tools that you can
Or
subscribe to that will allow
extraordinary.
you to do this. Just make sure that you're like very, very, very sensitive to terms of service. You never want to lose your LinkedIn account. So
Yeah,
play
no
by the
kidding.
rules.
No kidding. Hey, so
But if they connect, it replies back to them and it says,
Yeah.
hi, John, again, thanks for connecting with me. If I can ever help, maybe with introductions or talking about selling into a new account, I'm happy to help you. And then that's the first paragraph. And the second paragraph is, in the meantime, this is useful if you're working on your marketing message. And then there's a link to a page that takes them to one of my little booklets. That's it. That's all it says. Like, if I can ever help you, let me know. And here's like a little booklet that should be interesting. And my stuff, my stuff reads really well. It's usually concepts people have never thought about before, or it's something every day, but they've never experienced it in this way. And it helps like shift their perspective a bit. And they're all short reads and a lot of visual stuff in them. So that's it. Like, just give and give.
That's
and then
cool.
a few days later, there's another one for the second booklet.
Mhm.
And just letting them know that this is something we need to talk about. Putting together a live event for the fractional CMOs.
Mhm.
So it just lets, and it doesn't even, there's no link because we haven't like officially like set it up on LinkedIn Live yet or anything, but it just says, blah, blah, blah. Here's another fractional CMO booklet, blah, blah, blah. This one's really about selling as opposed to just copywriting and marketing. And then in the meantime, I'm looking at doing a live session about how fractional CMOs go from marketing themselves to actually selling. If you're interested in attending, in principle, can you let me know? And
Very,
all of
very,
these are
very low key, very non-threatening. I think that's what's
and
really
they're all
interesting.
Oh, that's
yeah,
what we're.
they've blown all my stats out of the water. Like I've never had
So
anything this
interesting.
successful.
Yeah, well, that's what
That's
we're.
great.
Nobody
There's no
wants
pitch. It's only give, and a potential to give more if you're interested in getting more, and that's
Right.
it.
That's what it should be.
So, with respect to LinkedIn tools, can you recommend things on Thursday or so? Because I'm really curious. I've avoided
talked about them
LinkedIn like the
before.
plague.
But yeah, we can do them on Thursday.
Yeah,
Like,
'cause
I like trying lots of them,
Yeah,
but I end up coming back to the same two over and over. Not
Right.
that they're the best ones; they're just suited to how I like to operate.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, makes sense.
That's the disclaimer.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what it does is and I use two-factor authentication on my LinkedIn account, which means and you can set limits for how many invitations you send every day. And be very careful, like I said, right? You do not want to run afoul of LinkedIn. But there is no way to, systematize anything on LinkedIn without one of these
Mhm.
tools. It provides no
Mhm.
tools. If you're thinking, oh, I'm on the free account, but if I had one of the premium accounts, then I'd have all of these tools for being better organized. No, you get nothing. There's just no way to do this. LinkedIn, even if you're on a premium tool, like a premium account where you get like 15
Navigator.
emails
Navigator and stuff. Yeah.
like that, there's no difference from using LinkedIn today and using it 10 years ago.
Mhm.
None.
No.
And so these tools have like grown up around it to try to ease some of the pains and awkwardness of dealing with it,
Well, they
on
make it-
anything other than a very casual once in a while scale.
You would think that LinkedIn would buy some of these tools.
Yeah. Or, these shouldn't be products. These
Why
should
should
just
they
be
make it
features
easy?
of LinkedIn.
They don't want to make it easy.
I don't know.
It sounds
I
a
mean,
lot
they
like
lost,
like
they've lost
Google.
court cases where companies have gone in and scraped all the data off of LinkedIn. Like your data belongs in multiple databases outside LinkedIn now. They lose the court cases because it's not illegal
No,
Right.
to scrape publicly available data.
exactly.
Right. So there you go. So yeah, out of this campaign, I've got there were 975 leads and invites at this point have been sent to. I'll run out. This campaign will finish
hmm
in about a week, I'd say.
Cool.
And the response rate, the conversion rate, which means people replied back, is
Mhm.
currently at 35.6%.
Extraordinary.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Mm-mm.
I had
Good.
one fractional CMO in my network when I started this. And again, this is just like drip. It's like I'm not blasting anybody. It's just like a few every day, 5 days a week, just during business hours. Like, it's just like, so it's not going fast.
No.
But I mean, now I have hundreds
Yes,
and
enough.
hundreds and hundreds of them.
Pretty good.
I have hundreds of conversations underway
I like
with
it.
fractional CMOs.
How do
And
you
we need to
track
do
hundreds of
a
conversations?
event for them.
Yeah, an event's good.
Well, it's like we say, consistency is key in everything. It's key in video. It's key on LinkedIn. It's key in your
Right.
social media. Everything you do, as long as you're consistent, you do a little bit every day. It
Yeah.
adds in big chunks at the end of the day.
Yeah, as much as I, for example, as much as I have a love-hate relationship with YouTube Shorts, they're finally getting traction, but it's taken about 8 months.
Wow.
It's a long time to be investing in something.
It can
Gee
take
whiz.
to some
Yeah.
things. Yeah, sure.
So,
So, something else I wanted to bring up. Well, first of all, let's talk about the fractional CMO
Yeah.
event.
Okay.
So, here's the challenge with fractional CMOs when it comes to they go out on their own, or a lot of them they sort of like join these little collectives where in exchange for like almost like a real estate agent would join Remax, right? And they're sort of on their own, but they get to use Remax's name and sharing some of the marketing and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So it is a very different experience to be inside a $45 million company as the CMO and marketing that company's products or services, out into the world, and trying to the way I sum it up for them is there's a very different. It's very different to try to sell something to strangers and sell this thing to this stranger,
Right.
especially if this thing is you personally. And while a lot of the concepts between marketing on behalf of your client and marketing yourself. A lot of the concepts overlap. There it is qualitatively different, or the way I'm sure my dad didn't come up with this, but he used to say a small business is not a little big business, right? It's a very different animal, and
Very
you cannot take lessons from big businesses and think that at a smaller, shrunk down scale, those lessons will work for a small business. They don't.
Well, the only thing I would disagree with is that I think the branding can be applied in some way
Right.
to the
There
small
are some
business.
pieces that can still be applied,
Yeah.
but
But when you're
But
on
not
your
the
own, like
systems.
you're a fractional
Yeah.
CMO selling your own services, and I mean,
Mhm.
you really, as a fractional CMO, you're probably only going to handle a handful of clients a year,
Mhm.
right? That's pretty much all you can take on.
Yeah, because you're
And
limited.
so like branding is important, but in big companies, the distance between branding and a sales meeting can be a very wide distance in time.
can take
Whereas when you're on your own, branding and a
it.
sales meeting kind of need to happen really soon, relative to each other.
Yeah.
And
I
so to
was
me,
thinking
like,
more in
but
terms of
I get
personal
your point
brand.
though, because I look at like one of the things I help them with is I help them, with their sort of LinkedIn presence, and then their website, right? Like the things that people see first, and we try to determine like how are people coming into your orbit, right? What do they see first when they come in? But then ultimately, we always get to the pitch deck, and
Mhm.
the number or percentage, let's say, of fractional CMOs who are using slides that just they do not look polished or professional.
Hmm.
And you are absolutely judged. If you make it to the pitch meeting, you're judged on the quality of that. And I'm not saying everybody doing every presentation anywhere and everywhere needs, to go to, what's that site called? Graphic River,
Oh,
right?
I don't
It's one
remember
of the
that one.
Envato ones where you can basically you can buy all of these really beautiful PowerPoint or Keynote or
The
Google Slide
templates. Yeah.
templates for like $6,
Hmm.
$15. I think the most expensive one I ever saw was $19, and that
Hmm.
one had 3,000 slides in it with all kinds of graphics and stuff. So you could dine out on that thing forever, right?
Yeah.
But particularly for CMOs, for graphic artists, for copywriters, right? Your message is what they're buying. You can be a structural engineer on your own and have a pitch deck, and the slides don't look particularly nice or thought through, and like you gave no investment at all into how something's being presented, and that's totally fine because nobody's hiring you based on that. But if you're in the marketing and sales field, then part of what they're buying is, well, if they can't even do this for themselves, why do I think they're going to do a better job for me?
Yeah. Right.
Hmm.
And
The
so,
shoemaker whose
there are a
kids have
lot of
no shoes.
professions
Yeah.
like that, but
Right.
fractional CMO is one of them where you're judged based on, and then it's the whole, if there's coffee stains on the flip down trays, how do I know they're doing the aircraft maintenance properly, right? They
Right.
can't even manage to wipe off coffee stains when I flip down this tray.
Yeah.
Time
So
to
like,
get up.
if you don't look like you know what you're doing, if you're not already living in the positive future that the client who's in a negative present wants to get to the positive future, if you're not already there and showing that you know how to make the journey, then all you're doing is talking about like stats and what you did at your last job. And those are valuable talking points, the stats. But the thing is, everybody they're talking to is doing the exact same thing with the stats.
Hmm.
And so you don't stand out. You're not a
Yeah,
horse lady.
it's going to
And
be
all
your
of that's not
spin.
aligned.
It's your particular spin on that kind of set
Yeah.
of numbers that they're going to buy you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to help you stand apart. Like the second booklet that we just talked about, one of the things is how to stand apart.
Hmm.
I think that book opens with the line, "Unique but not yet special," and by the end of the book, you should be special
So
and unique.
special.
So yeah, they're in one of the reasons, and this is one of the things we talked about when I was on that podcast on Friday. Talking to that host who is also a fractional CMO, is that you know it's there's no, and this is not my quote, this is from Rory Sutherland, who wrote a fantastic book called Alchemy, and if you haven't read Alchemy, like buy, in fact I recommend you get the audiobook because he has a great personality and it comes through in his book. But one of his lines is, there's no safety In marketing, there's no safety in numbers.
Mm.
If you look and sound and feel like everybody else, then you do not get an outsized reward. You just get one of the crumbs that the other seagulls also gets.
Mm.
Yeah,
There's
you're
no
not the
safety in
purple
numbers in marketing.
elephant in the herd.
And so they all want to like stay in the herd, and
Yeah.
but like you don't make any money there, and you don't get. And here's the thing: even if you manage to find clients that pay well, you don't get any interesting work there. You don't
Mm.
get the kind of work that grows. You don't get the kind of work that you get to basically, reputation wise, live on for years. Oh,
Mhm.
you're the one that did that, right?
Right.
You don't get
Yeah.
any of that stuff if you're right in the middle of the herd.
Well, and you lack the excitement too, the desire to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, every one of them that I talked to, and I've talked to so many, right, over the last 18 months. I really wish I'd thought about reaching out to so many on LinkedIn ages ago,
Mhm.
but I didn't. Instead, it was just they kept coming into me and sort of entering my. A year ago, most of my inbounds were coaches, and that was like 80%, and then about 10% were other small business, and about 10% were fractional CMOs. But the fractional CMOs now are the bulk of the business, right?
Great.
And they all have such interesting stories. All right, they all have something that's gives them an angle, and they've worked on a brand that I've actually used, or they're in a field where like their story about X and Y was fantastic, and they bury all of that stuff, all of it, and look and sound just like anyone else. And they say, well, once I get to like the in-depth meeting and the pitch meeting, I say, well, it's kind of too late because you're not getting to that meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there's no reason to bring you in.
Because nobody knows you did that.
Right. You're in the middle of the herd. You look like all 1,700 other fractional CMOs that have approached me in the last 24 months. Right.
So
And
of
so
those who approach you, how many eventually become clients?
of the CMOs,
Yeah, the fractional CMO.
that's a good question. I'd say
We
about
can deal with that later. I'm just curious. That's all.
not only has the number been climbing in the
Yeah.
last 9 to 12 months, but the
Yeah.
percentage has been climbing
Yeah, there you
just
go.
as fast.
Yeah.
So I'm not only talking to more, but I'm closing more and more of the
That's
ones that I
cool. So is this your Halo niche?
Yeah, this is becoming the
Fractional
Halo. If
CMOs?
you look at my website right now, right,
Yeah.
it just went through another rewrite because this is the
Mhm.
problem with being a copywriter. You're constantly
Mhm.
adding or changing copy on your own website.
Mhm.
It breaks down like the 3 phases that I'm taking them through. So A, we'll deal with your marketing and your selling to get you the client. B, once you get the client, I'm going to come in again, and none of this is contractual. No one has to bring me in,
No.
but I'm the guy that they already know they can count on. I come in and I do basically the same thing, right? The whole point is you're trying to tell, as the fractional student, you're trying to tell their story to them, but
Mhm.
now with you in it.
Mhm.
And then when you get in, you're trying to tell their story to their prospects with them in it. And I say, and then once that's done, and this came up on the podcast, I'll explain this in a second. Then we're going to go to sales, and we're going to take all of the strategic stuff that we just did around branding and marketing, and we're going to transform that into tactical stuff that a salesperson would actually say to somebody to get their attention or to help move the sale along.
Mhm.
And that came up from Eric Dickman, who was the host of the Virtual CMO podcast last week, and he says he's talking about like how should fractional CMO sort of approach the promise phase, right? Because in any sale, copywriting, in person marketing, whatever, there's like the promise with capital P, right? And then there's
Mhm.
always a promise. This is what could happen, how your life could be better, how your company's going to grow, whatever. I'd say, and I said, well, you get into danger when you start talking about like you're going to help them with brand awareness, you're going to help them with like net promoter score and PS, you're going to do, and you start committing to numbers,
Mhm.
right? And I said, you're going to run it because you have no control over that. It's something that you can push into, but it doesn't mean that it's going to push back or even give way. Like
Well, then that's a lot
you don't
just
know.
like lead gen. If you generate leads for a
Yeah.
chiropractic practice or dental practice or something, and they can't convert the leads, it's not your fault.
Right. But here's the thing. There's no sales VP anywhere in America who is happy with the leads they're getting from
Right.
marketing,
Right.
because marketing can just like dial up the number of ads or outreach or whatever, social media, and like, downloads of a white paper or whatever. Here's all these leads. These are not leads, right? They're certainly not prospects.
These are opt-ins.
Sales says, I would like
They're
leads, but
generic.
sales wants prospects, but they call them leads,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because no lead is a prospect until they're vetted and they might actually be interested.
Mm-hmm.
And so like you get a flood even. It doesn't matter if you get a little bit or a lot. If they're mostly junk, you only have
Right.
so many salespeople to do outreach, so it's useless. So
Yeah.
he said, so like, what do you recommend? He asked me like, what do I recommend to clients? And I say, we go to phase 3 of that 3-part plan. And I said, what happens is either during the sales process, if you happen to be talking to anyone in sales, or the very first day that you start on this engagement, you go to the head of sales and you say, hey, so first I've got to do this branding stuff and I've got to get things underway. We're going to add 2 more people.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to take me 3 to 5 months, according to my plan. As soon as that's all set up and underway, I'm coming to you and we're going to start transforming all that stuff so that your guys can book more meetings, book more demos, and start moving the numbers in a real way.
Mm-hmm.
So don't worry about net promoter score. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Go to sales. And I said, the reason for it is this. By the time you're done with your 12-month engagement, if the head of sales says, we love this gal, we love this guy, right? This person is helping us move the needle, and no one else you've had in this role before ever did.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the CEO, wanted more or isn't impressed with you or doesn't like you, it is a very brave CEO who will go to the board and say, sales loves this person and says that like what they do translates into real revenue, but I think I'm going to like not re-up them. Like the board's going to look at you like, do you not like money?
Mm-hmm.
Because this seems like a slam dunk to us. Sales is the hardest audience to win. And if they say that this person is moving the needle for them, why would you rock the boat on it? So then you don't have to care what your NPS is. Sales loves you. If sales loves you, you're golden.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, are all these fractional CMOs, are they dealing with tech companies or no?
Well, most of the ones that come to me deal with tech companies. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
That's just my specialty, right? My specialty is companies that make something complicated and sell it to people who know how to buy something complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I have no toothpastes or, toys in my
No
portfolio.
toothpaste or toys. You're no good to me.
There's no CPG really. There's not much CPG in mine. I mean, I enjoy doing the CPG stuff. You know what I mean by CPG, right? Like consumer packaged goods.
Yeah.
And I like that stuff. And like, one of my customers for, how long, for a while now has been CuriosityStream. I love writing for CuriosityStream.
Yeah.
30 million consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I love writing for them and they love what I write for them. So it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I tend to get hired just because there are lots of people in the B2C realm. There are very few that sort of have my background as computer programmer and software project manager, and tech sales engineer and sales. And also, wrote for many years, did all the outbound marketing for professional speakers and keynotes and webinars, and like wrote what people say to their own audiences, and then wrote for sales enablement folks for what salespeople would say. It's like, it's a weird mix.
Mm-hmm.
And so all that time in tech and all that time writing for human beings who are going to say something to other human beings, you don't find it very often.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could find someone with the same background. I would love to compare notes. Oh my God, how often would I? Dude, what do you do about this?
Is there another unicorn out there?
I have no one I can talk to about that stuff. It's just
Aww.
not a thing.
Dean Way,
I'll get by
creative.
just fine. But it would be super cool to have someone with the same background when the same clients to like compare notes and do war stories.
Actually, if that person's name was Dean, that would be
even better. Well, there's even a higher likelihood, according to my research and experience, to do it. Yeah. So then the last thing we didn't have a chance to go over this earlier because we didn't get on earlier like we sometimes do, is so I tell the horse lady story a lot, right? About picking a therapist, and basically the horse lady is, of the 5 that you find on wherever, Facebook or Google or LinkedIn or wherever one looks for a therapist, right? Like 4 of them the next day, they're so similar they get like amalgamated down into just like a composite therapist. And then there's the horse lady, and the horse lady says, instead of coming to my office and sitting in a chair opposite me and I'll ask you questions and you talk about yourself, come out to this nearby farm. I'm going to put you on this really sweet, old, gentle horse. And we're just going to take a leisurely walk and talk and ask questions. right? It's literally the same product. It's the same service. But A, she's managed to stand out and be remembered the next day as her own thing, not in the amalgamation with the other four.
Yeah.
And B, presumably she likes horses. So she's managed to combine something that she really likes into her business. Now, granted, she's the horse lady. She's not going to get every patient, but she will A, get the ones that are well suited to her, right? Because enough friction has been put in place. And B, she'll get a disproportionate share compared to the other four, any of the other four. Because you don't remember anyone else. You don't even remember their name.
True, but she'll also get people who love this.
Well, yeah, presumably, right?
Presumably. Or the smell of it doesn't offend them.
So the hardest part, of course, is getting outside your own head in any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And along the same lines, it's coming up with figuring out why you're the horse lady.
Mm.
And it's only after, again, it's one of these like right in front of you, so you can't really see it. Is that I'm thinking about setting up, and I talked to he's also a copywriter, but he does like similar adjacent stuff, kind of like I do. Josh Zepris in Orlando, met him on Lunch Club a couple weeks ago, and we just started talking about with Josh's thing is sort of the way he gets most of his clients started is by figuring out sort of like their unique approach. Right. So we have the same sort of program that way, except to me, that's not the end goal. I only do it to get to being able to write something that sets them apart as a horse lady. To him, it's like, hey, look, you're unique. And he goes deeper into it than I need to because I'm doing it to get to something else. And then we happened to mention like how my sessions were done. And then we started talking about, I think he may have already seen one or two of the Website Wednesdays. That we've done. I don't know how many of those we've done by now, but it's getting up there, probably a dozen or more.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about sort of an approach. He said there can't be very many copywriters who can produce like really high quality stuff live in real time. Right? You hire a copywriter and you understand that unless either you're going to use a project management kind of software like Monday or Basecamp or something, or else you're just going to go back and forth with emails and it's going to go over and over and over and it's going to drag out until the work's finally done. As opposed to like, is there a market for just, sometimes I just want to know that the whole thing's going to be done in 2 hours. I want to schedule something a week and a half from today where the copywriter is going to show up on the Zoom call. I'm going to be there to answer questions and talk about what the goals are. I'll provide him or her with the links ahead of time. And then I want the entire thing done, either like finished or damn near finished quality, at the end of that call, whether that's like an hour. I figure it would be
great.
like 2 hours.
Yeah,
I did that
like,
on over Christmas break. I had we were a friend of mine. I mean, we haven't seen each other in 20 years, but he has a company, a very specialized kind of company that deals with credit bureaus, and he needed his website rewritten 5 pages or so. And I said, I have like no bandwidth for this, right? Because I was working on it, and finally said, you know what? I bet you I could do the entire website. If you're on the call with me, we can do the entire thing in 2 hours.
I've got your branding. Copy guy on the fly.
Oh, that's good.
You like that?
Copy on the fly.
Copy guy on the fly or copy on the fly. I like copy guy on the fly because just because you
But there's no reason why I couldn't just sell real time. I mean, my stuff is excellent quality. And I mean, we only get to see the super rushed version in like a 25-minute exercise. And I have no prep, right? Yeah. I don't know who we're dealing with. Whereas if I had the URL ahead of time, I could just, even if I just have 5 or 10 minutes to read it, I could show up on a 2-hour call, completely write everything or rewrite usually.
And it would be fresh and raw and might be more insightful than if you spend more time on it.
Well, to me, the whole point of copywriting is how do you express the truth, right? Because nothing sells like the raw truth, and nothing's going to resonate. So I'm thinking, why not pivot a bit and start offering like live session? Like you're in, you're out. What day will your website be done? The same day that you schedule it to be done. And you show up for a 2-hour session. So you're there talking to me and I'm asking you questions and pushing back on cliches and stuff and creating something brand new, basically, from what you've already put there. Because usually all the information I need is on the page. It's just badly written.
And it's time compression.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
it's just that's just what's amazing. So if somebody thinks it's going to take 6 weeks or 8 weeks or something, whatever it is, if you do it in a day, that's a premium service.
yeah. I mean, here's the thing. What I charged that guy to rewrite his website, I didn't charge him more than most copywriters would charge
Mm,
if you look at it as a project.
hmm
Now, as a, it's not. I think that one was like $1,250 for 2 hours.
Mhm.
hmm
Right? $1,250 is about what you would expect a copywriter of my quality to do on like a very small website project.
Mhm.
Except, right, he was done that day. Like he was done in 2 hours.
And that's the premium. That's the premium. The special sauce
Yeah.
is the productivity and the delivery. The delivery way ahead of anybody else's schedule.
Right. And then it saves a lot of time on the customer side. They're not following
Mhm.
up. There's no micromanagement. You know you're going to hit your date because you set the date. It's the same as the start date.
Mhm.
The end date and the start date are the same date.
Wow, that's so appealing. That's just
Right. You
that
can
is
tell.
so
Now,
appealing.
granted, I don't do web stuff, so I only do the copy. So what I do
Yeah, yeah,
is,
yeah,
and it's very similar to what we do for Website Wednesday, where I
yeah.
use the same tool. I rewrite in there. I take screenshots of all that,
Right.
and I take the actual copy and in a document, and I send that out as an email and said, "Here's all your stuff.
hmm
Give it to your web person. Have them paste it in. You're good." And because there's
hmm
already screenshotted in, they know exactly where everything should go.
hmm
So it should only take them 20 minutes
Sure,
tops to completely refresh that website.
that's
But
amazing. But if you think about all the express services that exist, they always charge a premium.
right.
Always.
Yeah, the problem with yes, but understand that you're lending yourself to last minute requests,
Well, yeah, that is a problem.
and I don't, I would not enjoy that life.
I think the the 911 emergency marketing call is or copywriting call is not the
Yeah,
best.
yeah. There's not really any. There should never be any such thing as a copywriting emergency. It's like kind of not a thing,
Mm.
Unless I mean, if
Way
there's something
creative.
wrong on a website, it's like we're saying this and we really should not have ever said that. I mean, legal is all over us for this. That's kind of an emergency. But other than that, there's no
Way
such
creative. What's the nature of your
emergency.
copy emergency?
But I mean, if you can only, I mean, looking at my calendar, nobody could book me for something, any earlier than say 10 or 15 days in advance anyway.
Right.
Mhm.
So it's not, yeah. So I'm thinking I might be the very first copywriter to worldwide even to enter the compressed time field.
Compress. Yeah. That's just I think that's the halo within the halo.
Yeah.
It's sainthood. You're
Yeah.
you're going
What
for
I'll probably do is
saint
I'll
copy.
sell it as like a 2 hour block and I'll include like an extra hour for asynchronous work. Sometimes like you ask someone a question, but they don't have the answer during your session. So you've already built in some time offline to make small adjustments and stuff and little tweaks.
Mhm.
Right. And once in a while, I'll walk away from one of those sessions and the next day, you're like shaving and it's like, oh, that's exactly the way I would have worded that. So I just go back and send it to them. No charge.
That's nice.
Right.
Bathroom
It's not like I can
inspiration.
turn it off anyway. And it's not doing me any good in there because it's for them. I'm never going to be able to use it myself. So take it. But yeah, I think I might be the first. That might be my horse lady.
I am
Compressed
my
time.
horse lady. Horse copy. Faster than a speeding bullet.
Yeah.
Faster than a thoroughbred horse. Way creative. Copy guy on the fly.
There's a pony in there somewhere.
There's a pony
in here
there
somewhere. I just got to keep digging. Yes.
Oh,
So that was the revelation that's come out of the last few weeks of talking to people and meeting
Yeah.
people. Like compressed time. Basically, Website Wednesday becomes the business model.
no kidding.
When you think
Yeah.
about it,
That's
it's
good.
expanded and enriched, but it's basically Website Wednesday.
hmm
Just a longer time period, and I get to know ahead of time what I'm working on.
hmm
That makes it much less. If I knew in advance what you guys were going to throw at me on Website Wednesday, it would be much less stressful for me.
Well, we could do that.
No,
And
I
then
wanna
we
keep
throw
the
a
stress.
curveball in the middle of it.
Yeah,
We like to stress you up a little bit.
I know you like
By the way,
stressing me
it's
out.
not a funeral director. It's actually a party planner.
That's right.
Oh my goodness.
Go.
Sorry. My mistake.
Yeah.
A dog washer.
It's a dog washer for funeral directors.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then sort of without the sort of last consideration around that, granted, now that I've got so many Website Wednesday videos done,
Yeah.
The problem with, of course, anything, you start thinking about, you always want to put yourself in the other person, the reader's context, right?
Yeah.
And what are they likely to be thinking? And I like to think about everything, like, are they in the car reading this on their phone? Are they, like, what's going on around them? Is it noisy? I like to think about the likeliest possibilities for that. But of course, you should always, at a minimum, think about like the likeliest thoughts and whether or not you've like activated somebody's bullshit detector.
Mm-hmm.
And in case anyone is actually watching this now or in the future, I doubt it. But there are times when you're writing copy where you deliberately set off someone's bullshit detector.
Yeah.
Just so that then you can knock it down. Right.
Well, and you get them
show why it
engaged.
shouldn't have gone
Yeah.
off. Or,
Yeah.
yes, you were right to doubt that, but this situation's different because we're coming at it this way, and here's why it works now, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so, but that's not what I was thinking. I don't want to invoke anyone's bullshit detector on this one. There is no BS involved. That what it comes down to is, without like revealing the reasons, you guys know my situation, but we don't need to. The whole world doesn't have to know.
Mhm.
Is that if I like part of the story is look at as in like, is this real? Is this a gimmick? Like, how do I know I'm getting good stuff? And granted, now there's lots of video evidence of live streamed in real time in front of an audience. Here's what is
Yeah.
can be accomplished. There's lots of that. But if that didn't exist, or if I needed something even more, whether or not I would, and you guys actually are in situations where you'd have a good perspective on this and you'll know what I mean in a second, is like, other than the experience of just being someone who can write at that high quality level quickly, other than that, that's one of the three things. There's also the two other situations that make it possible, right? It would be unfair on the one hand for a prospect to go to another copywriter and say, Dean Way does this in real time.
Mm.
I want you to do it. Right? It's not just an experience thing. It's that there are two things internally that, are blessings and curses in their own ways
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
that
Mm-hmm.
make this possible.
Yeah.
Whether those two things should ever be included in the story, I have not decided yet, because
Yeah.
it's kind of no one's business.
Yeah.
Well, there's always cloning in the future, so
Yeah, there's the other thing, right? This is not a scalable model. Like, I
No.
can do this all day, every day.
Yeah.
Literally, because of those other two internal things,
Right.
I could not teach this to anyone else.
No.
It's
But
not
that's
just a skill set; it's an ability made
Yeah.
possible by certain things.
it's baked into who you are. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Literally.
Literally, not baked,
Yeah.
really, but I mean, it's like
Oh, maybe not baked.
integral,
Yeah. Yeah.
essential elements.
So I couldn't. Like, I have, the junior copywriters that I do office hours on for Mondays, where I don't charge them, and like they bring their copy that they're working on for other clients, and I make it good. Sometimes I make it good. Sometimes it's good, and I make it better. Oftentimes I make it good in the first place,
Mhm.
and then they go and they sell it, pretend it's theirs, and I'm fine with that. I don't care. But the thing is, like, they keep asking me to teach them how I do it, and I can't teach them how I do it.
Yeah.
Right? I
It
would
just
if I could,
Yeah.
but I can't teach them how to
Well,
have their brain wired in the way that
yeah,
mine is wired, for all of its
and
advantages and disadvantages and curses and blessings that I have to put up with.
yeah, and I see the same thing. I've got this wiring from my mom, who was a
Yep.
linguist, spoke 7 languages. I've got the humor from my dad, and when you start mixing all this DNA and neurology together, you get this, whether they like it or not.
Yeah. I think we all have that a little bit. I mean, I have that.
Yeah.
I have that technical kind of thing that I can put complex technical stuff together and make it look easy. And
Mhm.
nobody else understands how to do that, but it just comes to me. So
Yeah. There are teams of neurologists and specialists that would love to crack our heads open. The three of us.
Exactly,
for different reasons.
exactly.
literally,
And they need to stay away because I've got work to do.
well, in
But
my
there are baked in neurological wiring,
Exactly.
pros
My-
and cons to
my
how
gift-
you're born, and that's it.
yeah, well, and my gift may come from many of the same things that yours does.
Yeah. I
You know,
imagine it does.
Anything is possible.
There are things I don't perceive, and there are other things no one perceives. And when I write them out, it's like, I was explaining it to someone. I'd say like I was writing sort of the intro to someone's. I think this was just a LinkedIn profile. This was a few weeks ago. Might have been what's his name, Eric Johnson. Might have been right, Fractional CMO.
Yep.
And I mean, I'm looking at that first line, and that first line is so critical, right? If I nail the first line, I've got that reader for the next 100 or so words.
Yep.
And these are only about 100 words long. So if I can really dial in and come up with something really smart or attractive for that first sentence, then I've got them for the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, but once in a while, I do try to get outside my own head and look at it. Like, what's it look like if you're on the other end of the Zoom call? Because they're watching me type it in real time. But to me, I'm writing and rewriting that first line in my head. Might
Right.
be 8, might be 10, might be 25 times. But to them, the whole thing only takes 5 seconds. So it looks like I'm looking at a blank line on a screen, and then I type it in, and all they see is the end result, the magic.
Yeah, there's so much processing going on and so many ideas
right?
coming
It's
out
going
that then
so fast.
yeah.
Yeah.
What they
But
see
to
is
them, it
not
just
what
looks
actually
like
happened.
it comes to me out of the air, but it's not. It just goes by so fast. I couldn't even tell them all the variations that I'm going through. It's just like
It
down.
appears like magic because
Right.
what
Yeah.
you see is not what's really going on.
Yeah, I promise you, there's tons of real work happening. It's just that it's
Yeah.
done at an accelerated speed.
Yeah.
By the way,
Totally.
I'm exhausted after every one of those sessions, right? Like I need to go relax with a drink that doesn't have any caffeine in it and just veg for a
That's
while
why it's a
because
premium
it just
service.
burns through my brain calories.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
is nice to know the job's over and someone got a full deliverable,
Yeah.
and
Well, you
something
don't,
was
and you
really
don't have
accomplished.
you don't have a series of deliverables hanging over your head during the week.
No.
Nope.
No. It's all done in one.
Yep. I think if I go to the live model, I would probably only be able to work 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
So I would probably do it from 9 to 12 Eastern every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yeah.
would be either 1 or 2 sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And if
Totally.
I did that, like I could do that. I could do that 5 days a week.
That makes
And I
perfect
would like
sense.
it because every day is some new project, right? You're not just slogging through,
No.
right?
Any more
And
than
so
that.
you're making your money. You're done by noon. Then you like take 2 hours over lunch to veg because you can't
Mhm.
like barely move, and then you do all the other stuff that is in your day. Go to the gym,
Well,
buy
and
groceries,
it
whatever.
gives you this dopamine rush. Every day is going to be something new, exciting,
Yeah.
and surprising.
So the only
So,
problem is how to fill that pipeline. But I don't know anyone any copywriter anywhere who
mhm.
promotes and sells on real time engagement. I
Mhm.
did post to a few different groups.
Mhm.
When I was cycling down the LinkedIn stuff, and I just asked them like, how many of you, have sessions where the client watches you work? And it was either crickets or people going like, why the hell
Why would you
would
ever
I
do that?
ever want or let a client to watch me write?
I
It's
think
like watching somebody make sausage. Don't
Yeah.
do it.
I think I know a handful that could probably do it, but it's
But they don't.
but well, I'm not sure. But as far as I know, they don't.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that they
Honestly, let's say that you knew
watch
4
them
more.
do it.
Okay.
I
There were
know
5 of us in the entire United States who were doing it. That's still such a tiny, tiny sliver of the market. We would never overlap with each other.
never.
No.
There's one person that I know that not only did she write all the copy, but she did the whole funnel in front of like a group of people and recorded it, and
Yeah.
that smoked my mind because that's like a bunch
It's
of
a similar skill.
well,
Yeah.
but it's it's an add-on.
But
And
I think the copywriting is far more complex and
yeah,
creative.
yeah.
Because funnel building sometimes just seems like you're just assembling things together based on a certain set of parameters.
Yeah, but she did the copy with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but again, it's probably not as strenuous a copy as you're going through and all of that, but it's a good copy,
Yeah.
But anyways, there's probably a handful of people.
Well,
My wife recently stopped being, I don't know if I told you guys this, but she left being a public school teacher, and now she works in finance at Pepsi.
Oh, cool.
Works at home in her pajamas,
Mhm.
which she likes.
Nice. Nothing wrong with
Right. And can actually go to the bathroom when she needs to. as opposed to when you're a teacher, you just can't like go right whenever you want or do anything. Right?
Catheters, catheters,
Right.
catheters.
And so it's already bad enough because my work is done in 2 focused spurts based on. I did this really good course. If you guys know who Scott Galloway is and Section 4 and that whole like thing that they're building over there education wise, but a recent one was around productivity and sort of figuring out your sort of clock and cycle. And so most of my work is done in 2 spurts, usually between like 5 and 9 a.m. or 5 and 10 a.m. and then a few hours towards the end of it. I got to get going, by the way. It's time to drive one of my, And so like, I'm sure for like most of the day, while I'm just sort of, ruminating on stuff and reading stuff and rereading and trying to figure out, like to my wife, it must look like I spent a large chunk of the day not working at all.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
But that doesn't.
I mean, I've always got something. I've got a computer or I've got an iPad with a keyboard, and like I'm doing something, but it looks like I'm doing nothing. I'm just lying down on the couch.
But she can't. She doesn't have X-ray vision to watch all the neurological connections
Yeah, there you go.
firing. If she
All
would,
right,
if
I
she
gotta
would have
go.
this little thing that she could just go in there, it was like.
Yeah.
I was like,
So this is our longest one. This is our first after show that we just added on. Huh? All right,
I
I'll see
like
you guys
it.
tomorrow. Tomorrow is Website Wednesday.
It is
Don't tell
website
me what it's
Wednesday.
going to be. Just show
Don't
me tomorrow.
stress.
Yeah.
Compress.
Yes.
That's
All right.
Decompress.
Later. Bye.